There is a story the gods would prefer to forget, a story buried beneath layers of myth and noble tales. It begins not with a contest, but with a cry for help from a king who was half serpent, and an answer that came from a sky filled not with mercy, but with predatory interest. What if the gift of peace was, in fact, the seed of discord, and the gift of strength, a promise of servitude? What if the entire pantheon was so fractured by internal feuds that humanity's fate became merely a tool for settling scores? In this tale, the oracle's prophecy foretells not salvation, but suffering. The winner's choice brings no peace, but unleashes an eternal war. And the laughter of one goddess of strife becomes a death knell for thousands. We will guide you through the darkest corridors of Olympus, reveal the gods' true, ugly faces, and uncover the secret they've guarded so diligently. This isn't just the story of Athens' birth. It's the story of how one drop of divine fury can poison an entire ocean of human history. And that drop hasn't even fallen yet. To see how it happens, you need to stay until the very end. What if the fate of an entire city hinged on a single absurd challenge? A grotesque wager between gods, a clash of titans played out in the shadows of ancient Greece, where ambitions simmered hotter than molten lava. Imagine the scene. Two divine beings, each armed with gifts potent enough to alter the course of destiny, stand at the precipice, deciding the future of a city. Yet the air crackled with a tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Athena, the fierce warrior goddess, whose wisdom was sharper than any blade, clad in an aura of battle-hardened valor. Poseidon, the tempestuous lord of the seas, the storm incarnate, wielding power capable of sinking entire armies. They clashed for the city, each hoping to claim it as their own. Yet their methods were as different as night and day. What do you think happened next? A grand spectacle of diplomacy? A simple debate? Oh, how naive. Instead, they plunged into chaos, an echo that would reverberate through the annals of time for centuries, a twisted comedy of errors that only the gods could orchestrate. Athena's eyes gleamed with cunning, a mischievous glint like a cat spotting a mouse. Her gift, an olive tree, was a symbol of peace, prosperity, and infinite potential. Poseidon, with power enough to cleave oceans, struck the earth, giving birth to a spring of salt water. Useful, yes, but hardly a match for the fruits of Athena's wisdom. The stakes escalated, the whispers of mortals drowned out by the fury of angry waves and the chime of divine laughter. But what if the real question wasn't about who would win? What if the true secret lay in the very nature of their rivalry? Gods battling over a city not for its inhabitants, but for their own egos. What does that say about power when gods bicker like schoolchildren on a playground? And as the narrative descended into pandemonium, alliances formed in the shadows, and the most unexpected heroes emerged, each vying for a sliver of divine favor, each with secrets darker than the deepest ocean trench. Can you feel it, the pull? The gnarled roots of intrigue wrapping around your mind like creeping vines. Every twist and turn of the plot unravels a deeper, darker mystery. Ancient prophecies, hidden betrayals, and the unforeseen consequences of an absurd contest capable of reshaping civilization. Here lies a story steeped in blood and laughter, a farce with the potential for tragedy. And when the dust settles, what will remain? A city caught in the crossfire, a populace oblivious to the cosmic game being played out above their heads, a game that could reduce their lives to pawns. Athena, and Poseidon, titans locked in an eternal conflict. But what of the mortals? How soon will they realize that their fate lies not in their own hands, but in the grip of two egos too proud to yield? Every heartbeat resonates with urgency. Every moment teeters on the brink of catastrophe. Your curiosity gnaws at you, desperately craving the next revelation, the next turn in this divine drama. So lean closer. Dare to uncover the absurdity, the amusement, the chilling darkness. The battle for Athens is not merely a story of gods. It is a riddle wrapped in a joke, a cosmic joke played on unsuspecting humans. And the punchline? Oh, that is yet to come. The sun hung low over the city that would one day be called Athens, casting elongated shadows that crawled across the cobblestones like secrets escaped from a phantom's lips. The air was thick with a tension that crackled like static electricity before a thunderstorm, and it coiled around me like a tightening noose. The distant sound of children's laughter was a cruel counterpoint to the chaos swirling just beyond the periphery of sight. In that moment, I stood at a crossroads of hope and despair, feeling the weight of what was to come. The city's heart pulsed beneath my feet, alive, restless, yearning for change. Here, amidst the crumbling stone and the whispers of the past, Cecrops, half man, half serpent, was to cast his bid for power. A chill snaked down my spine, as if the very earth beneath my feet held its breath, awaiting the moment that would change everything. I remembered the stories, old wives' tales told by firelight, their voices trembling with fear, of how Cecrops emerged from the earth, a creature of mystery, his eyes carrying the weight of ages. But beneath that regal exterior lurked a man, tormented by doubt, an eternal struggle between ambition and the haunting memories of his own creation. Was he a king or a monster, a protector or a threat? I felt the weight of his conflict pressing down on my chest, tightening with every beat of my heart. Enthroned upon his serpent-scaled throne, Cecrops surveyed the land with a gaze that pierced the fog of uncertainty. His heart pounded a frantic rhythm, a drumbeat echoing the pulse of a city teetering on the brink of chaos. The people looked to him for guidance, but all he felt was a gnawing sense of inadequacy. Would they ever accept him, a hybrid born of the very earth? Would his reign be washed in blood and betrayal? Or would he rise above the whispers, shedding the serpent that coiled around him? And there, in the shadows, stood Aglauros, his sister, her heart intertwined with her brother's fate. She bore the weight of the world on her fragile shoulders, a fierce protector determined to shield him from the bitter winds of doubt. But in her eyes, I saw a flicker of longing, a deep yearning for belonging that pierced the air like the cold steel of a dagger. She would follow him into the darkness, yet a part of her recoiled from his very essence, the serpent that coiled around his soul. Aglauros, I whispered, feeling the tremor in her name, the weight of her pain. She turned to me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, a storm brewing within her. What if the people do not accept him? What if they see only the beast? Her voice trembled, a fragile whisper against the howling wind. Then they shall fall prey to their own ignorance, I muttered, knowing that even my words felt hollow against the encroaching tide. Would the people choose fear over understanding, rejecting Cecrops for who he was, rather than for who he could become? I watched her wrestle with the truth, a battle raging deep within her soul. The very essence of her loyalty, was tied to the man he could be, while the shadow of the serpent loomed over them. And there, on the periphery, lurked Erichthonius, another brother, born of the earth, yet fashioned by the heavens. A boy torn between two worlds. The air hummed with electricity as he watched the unfolding confrontation. A silent spectator in a play of broken hearts and betrayal. He felt jealousy and admiration collide within him, each emotion a dagger poised to strike. Would he step forward or remain in the shadows, locked within the darkness of his own insecurities? I remembered the first time I saw him. He was a shimmer of light, dancing on the edge of shadow. Erichthonius was the reflection of who Cecrops could be, a beacon of hope, albeit tethered to his brother's fate. In his heart, he craved acknowledgement, but the weight of their origin was a chain, binding him to the past. He knew all too well that the world judged not by blood, but by the outward sheen of their existence. Yet he possessed the power to change it all, to carve a path through the fog of fear. The moment hung suspended in the air, everything teetering on the brink. The very earth trembled as Cecrops stepped forward, his voice rising above the cacophony of doubt, a wave pushing back the storm. "I am your king," he proclaimed, a mighty surge crashing against the rocks of their disbelief. "I am your protector. Together, we shall rise." But even as the words left his lips, I felt a tremor of uncertainty, like distant thunder, echoing in the hearts of those gathered below. But the people, they were not so easily swayed. Eyes filled with suspicion, they whispered amongst themselves, their bodies taut as drawn bowstrings. Would they accept this creature, this fusion of man and serpent? Or would they shrink back in fear, their ignorance breeding hate, inviting the wrath of the gods? A chilling silence descended, breaths held in unison, the world frozen in the moment before the storm. I felt the weight of their hearts, a collective fear enveloping the crowd, a shroud of darkness threatening to consume them whole. It was an ineffable tension, as if time itself had ceased to flow, the cosmos holding its breath, awaiting the fateful decision that would echo through eternity. Aglauros stepped forward, her voice trembling with defiance. "He is our brother. He is one of us." The words echoed, reverberating through the souls of those who heard them. Yet doubt lingered, a ghost in the mist. I watched her struggle to pull them back from the edge of the abyss. But with every heartbeat, the chasm widened. And in that moment, I felt the suffocating weight of hope colliding with despair. A collision so profound, I feared the earth itself might split beneath us. The tension in the air thickened, a serpent poised to strike. Cecrops stepped forward, a flicker of desperation igniting in his chest. "Let the gods decide," he declared, a challenge hurled into the churning vortex of fate. "I offer you a gift, a choice between my rule and barren land." And there it was, the pivotal moment, the heartbeat drumming in time with the earth's pulse, the instant that would define their every destiny. The winds howled, the sky darkened, and the people held their breath, awaiting the collision of fates. In that taut silence, I could feel the very weight of history shifting, the clash of past and future, shadows gathering around us like a brewing storm. I remembered standing there, unable to look away. The tension was unbearable, yet I was rooted to the spot, a witness to the chaos of emotions swirling around me. It felt as though the entire world had paused, and I was trapped in a liminal space between hope and despair. The choice loomed with the weight of dark clouds gathering overhead, laden with possibilities, ready to unleash a tempest. The sky ripped open with a roar, thunder bellowing like a restless beast. And in that instant, the air turned electric, thick with the scent of impending chaos. I remember standing there, my feet rooted to the ground, my heart hammering against my ribs as if it might break free from its cage. The earth trembled beneath me, a warning, a promise. It was in that agonizing silence, just before the precipice of catastrophe, that I felt them, the nascent gods, neither heroes nor monsters, but something exquisitely raw and powerful. Poseidon, his presence piercing the swirling clouds, was the embodiment of the storm. Dark hair like a river of night, eyes like churning tempests. He emerged from the depths of the ocean. He clung to it, like a second skin, salty and wild. I felt his fury, an insatiable thirst for dominion over the waves, a desire to crush humanity's faltering grasp. He was power, unfiltered emotion, raw and untamed. Yet I sensed a pulse of vulnerability beneath his defiant exterior. Divinity was a crown, heavy with the burden of expectation. And there he stood, on the brink, balanced between a ferocious need for power and the haunting spectre of loneliness. I remember his gaze, fierce and searching, as it met mine for a fleeting moment, a momentary connection before he turned, muscles tensing to defy the very fabric of reality. Behind him, the sea unfurled, an angry plain threatening to swallow the world whole. And there was Athena, radiant, a light that seemed to pierce the darkness, the goddess of wisdom. But in this moment, she seemed as fragile as the thin glass of a forgotten window, shadowed by insecurity. Her intellect was a double-edged sword, capable of forging worlds, yet burdened by the fear of failure. I felt that weight as she stood facing Poseidon, the tension crackling between them like the first spark of a flame in dry summer. She was strategy incarnate, yet even her mind, sharp as a blade, could not predict the chaos swirling like a gathering storm in the distance. "Do you always seek to drown the world?" she spat, her voice trembling with an intensity that echoed in the stillness. I watched her hands clench into fists, shaking with frustration. The air around them was charged, a thick haze imbued with the tension of 1,000 unspoken words. He laughed, a sound both ugly and beautiful, a resonance that vibrated deep within my chest. "And you, do you always seek to tame the wild? Do you think your wisdom will shield you from the tides that rise? You cannot control what you cannot comprehend." The challenge hung between them, a tangible thing, heavy and palpable. This was no idle squabble, no simple sibling rivalry. This was a battle of ideologies, a brutal collision of chaos and order. Each word was a weapon, each glance a dagger. Had I reached out, I felt I could have grasped the tangible energy, shimmering threads of fate, writhing and twisting in a wild dance. The winds intensified, swirling around us with a frenetic fury. I tasted salt on my lips, the sharp tang of ocean air mingling with the scent of a storm. Time seemed to fracture. Past and future bled into the present moment, as I recalled whispers of their origins, the ominous shadows of prophecy, dreams of power that came with sacrifice, the ghosts of those who came before them, echoing like distant thunder. "I remember the darkness that birthed us," Athena said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. "We were forged in the ashes of conflict, the remnants of a world that craved us. You feel it, don't you? the burden of expectation, the clamor of all those lost souls who wished for gods to guide them. We are not mere symbols, Poseidon. We are the reckoning they deserve. Her truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. It was a reminder of the origins they carried, a legacy that traced back to the brutal machinations of fate. I saw it in Poseidon's eyes, a flicker of doubt, the knowledge that with power came responsibility, and with responsibility, the agonizing burden of choice. "Then why do we fight?" he roared, his voice low and guttural, a storm brewing beneath. "Why does the very essence of existence dictate our clash? What if I choose chaos? What if I decide to drown the world's cries beneath the waves?" A pause, taut as a drawn bowstring, my heart hammered, the world around them fading to a whisper, the god himself standing on the precipice of creation and destruction. I felt a surge of fury and fear, both so profoundly human despite their divine forms. They were not just gods, they were children of the cosmos, wrestling with their destiny, with their identity. "I remember," Athena whispered, her voice trembling like leaves in the wind. "When I was born of thought and strategy, fashioned from the very fabric of reason, I remember the love that birthed the universe, the passion that ignited creation. We are part of something greater, Poseidon. We cannot let our power devolve into madness." The storm raged on, but in that moment, time stood still. The weight of their existence bore down on me, a suffocating truth that seeped into my very being, clamping down on my heart like a vice. I felt it, the unyielding tension of their clashing destinies, a piercing reminder that gods were not immune to the struggles of the heart. A flash of lightning illuminated the horizon, silhouetting their figures, a stark reminder of the fragility of their essence. In that pulse of light, I saw something flicker between them, a glimpse of understanding, a tether, a thread woven from the fabric of their shared beginning. "Then let us forge a new path," Poseidon said, his voice rough, stripped of bravado. "Not as rivals, but as allies. We can create, not destroy. I have tasted the salt of the sea and the blood of the earth. I know the depths of despair, but I also know the joy that comes with creation." Athena's expression softened, illuminated by a ray of hope. "Then let us create a world where we are not merely gods, but guardians, where every wave and every thought resonates in harmony. But know this, brother, my wisdom shall never yield to chaos." Their gazes met, a silent understanding flowing between them, a fragile bridge of possibility. It was the moment before dawn, still shrouded in darkness, yet brimming with the promise of light. Beneath that tempestuous sky, I felt their spirits intertwine, echoes of the past weaving into a future yet unformed, a tapestry of potential stretching to the horizon. And in that instant, the storm raged on, but the battle transformed. The birth of gods was a cacophony of emotion, a symphony of ambition, fear, and an unyielding pursuit of purpose. With every beat of the heart, the world trembled, and standing witness, I knew this was merely the beginning, the first brushstrokes of a canvas that would paint the heavens in hues yet unseen. The air crackled with tension, a tempest brewing in the hearts of gods. Lightning flickered across the darkened skies above Olympus, silhouetting marble columns like fleeting thoughts of a dying star. I stood on the precipice of an abyss, watching Hera's golden eyes blaze with fury, a storm barely contained. She was the queen, but in that moment she seemed as fragile as the delicate threads of fate. "Do you dare question my fidelity?" Her voice, like thunder, bounced off the mountain stone, resonating deep within the marrow of my bones. But at the center of this maelstrom was Zeus. His brow was furrowed in a shadow of regret, a god torn asunder by the consequences of his own power. I remember his hands, once as firm as the roots of an ancient oak, now trembling as he clutched a lightning bolt, the very embodiment of his might. It crackled in his grasp, a living thing of chaos. Yet it felt like a curse. He was both father and destroyer, a man who could command the heavens, yet felt lost within his own heart. Enough, I wanted to cry out, but the words lodged in my throat like a beached fish, gasping for air. My gaze shifted to Athena, standing to the side, her eyes sharp and wise, yet haunted by the knowledge of betrayal. A quiet sigh escaped her lips, each exhale a whisper of the wisdom she carried, but it was her silence that screamed the loudest in this chaos. "You think you know passion, brother," she murmured, her voice as sharp as a razor's edge. "You wielded it like a weapon, yet never understood its price." I felt the weight of her words coil around me, tighter than chains. Passion, the tender, ferocious fire that could ignite worlds or shatter them. It pulsed through the pantheon, a living entity that bound us and damned us all. The gods danced on a knife's edge, tethered together, yet eternally fractured. Every relationship a thread stretched to its breaking point. I was but an observer, a mortal with my heart in the gods' hands, caught in the crossfire of divine emotions. I remembered when the skies were clear, when laughter echoed through the halls of Olympus, and memories were woven from joy. Now shadows loomed, the weight of betrayal and jealousy thickening the air. A chill traced its way down my spine as I glanced towards the distant figure of Hades, observing from the fringes of the underworld. His face was a mask of indifference, but his eyes, oh, how they burned with an ancient sorrow. He was a god, yes, but haunted by spectres. Always an outsider, forever yearning for the warmth of the living. In the midst of the chaos, he found solace in solitude, and I couldn't help but wonder, was this solitude a prison he chose willingly? "Why do you cling to the past?" Zeus roared, his voice thunderous. But I heard the tremor beneath it, a man grappling with his demons. "Why can you not forgive?" But forgiveness was an illusion, a shimmering mirage in the desert of their relationships. Each god bore scars, the wounds of lost affection, hearts shattered upon the relentless altar of ambition. "Is that not our very essence?" Athena retorted, her words laced with bitterness. "Foolish in our desires, doomed to repeat our mistakes." In that moment, time lost all meaning. I felt suspended in a dream. Each heartbeat echoed in the silence of the gods, each breath a reminder of their shared agony. The sky darkened, clouds churning like memories of battles long past, of love triangles spinning wildly, of the weight of expectation pressing down upon their shoulders. I felt the pull of their lives, caught in an emotional vortex that threatened to consume us all. And then there was Hera, the heart of the storm. Her devotion to Zeus, a raging tide. She was fierce, yet vulnerable, a lioness protecting her cubs, her heart both a fortress and a prison. "I loved you," she whispered, and the words fell like petals from a wilting flower. "I shattered myself for you." Her vulnerability pierced the air, an arrow of pain that struck the heart of everyone present. This was the heartbreak that transcended time, something comprehensible even to a mere mortal like myself. Affection and betrayal intertwined in a dance as old as Olympus itself. With each passing moment, the air grew thicker with tension, a palpable storm brewing within and between them, threatening to erupt. I felt it, an impending confrontation, a clash of wills that would resonate through eternity. Each god held a shadow, each goddess a longing, and the stage was set for catastrophe. Would they find a resolution, or would chaos consume them? The question remained, the answer hidden within the swirling mists of fate. I remembered the chilling silence that followed, breaths held in the throats of gods. Eyes met, as if the universe itself held its breath, awaiting the inevitable. I was but a witness, yet every fiber of my being ached with their truth. They were not just gods. They were fractured souls, yearning for connection, for understanding, adrift in a web of roles that often suffocated them. The storm broke with a sudden clap, lightning illuminating the darkened sky in a flash of brilliance. Zeus raised his thunderbolt, a desperate plea for order amidst the chaos. My heart hammered, anticipation coiling within me like a spring. "Enough," he roared, his voice slicing through the tension. And yet, every ounce of his power felt like a fragile glass ornament, hanging on the edge of an abyss. But within the depths of their turmoil, I sensed something more profound, a yearning for unity, buried beneath layers of resentment. Could it be that from this chaos, something profound could emerge? Reconciliation, perhaps, or a revelation that would shatter the walls they had built around their hearts. The fire of their emotions held the power to forge new bonds, but it required courage to face not only each other, but themselves. It hung in the air, heavy and electric, the pulse of their collective heartbeat thrumming in my ears, a promise of what was to come, an impending confrontation that would change their world. And as I stood there, amidst the gods and their storm, I felt that this was only the beginning, the start of a tempest that would redefine everything. A swirling vortex of fate that beckoned with a whisper, a promise of chaos and renewal, intertwined, waiting for its moment. The rain drummed against the cobblestone streets, an insistent metronome ticking off the city's heartbeat. The air was thick, charged, as if the very heavens conspired to drown the world below. I stood there, soaked to the bone, my heart hammering like a wild animal trapped in a cage. Shadows whispered secrets, and the lamplight flickered nervously, as if sensing the encroaching horror. That night was meant to be the beginning of everything. "Where is he?" Alaric's voice cut through the storm, ragged with urgency. His dark eyes blazed with a mix of fear and fury, and I felt the weight of his desperation pressing down on us, like the oppressive clouds overhead. He was a man of many flaws. His pride was a sword, sharp and often blinding, yet his loyalty was a flame that never faltered. I had seen him risk his life for those he loved, but today that fire flickered as doubt gnawed at his insides. "He's late," I muttered, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. I felt the shadows stretching around us, reaching out with phantom fingers. Memories of our past whispered on the wind, laughter shared over tankards of ale, tales told by crackling fires, the warmth of camaraderie. But now we stood on the precipice of oblivion. There was a chill in the air, heavier than the rain. It settled into my bones, and I shivered, not just from the cold, but from the premonition swirling around us like a thundercloud. I remembered the prophecy, dark words that had been etched into time. The city needed a patron. The weight of it hung over us. a grim reminder of our fate. Maybe he's changed his mind, I suggested, hoping to dispel the suffocating atmosphere. Alaric shot me a look, and I knew he saw through my attempt at levity. You know him, I continued, always playing the hero. Playing? Alaric's voice rose, and I flinched. He is the hero. He is the only one who can save us. The storm roared, echoing his frustration, and for a moment I feared the heavens would crack open and swallow us whole. In that instant, I thought of Ah. She was the heart of our group, a light in the encroaching darkness. Her laughter could pierce the thickest fog, and her spirit was as fierce as the storm raging around us now. But she too was lost in her own turmoil, ensnared by the ghosts of her past, the family she had lost, the dreams that had crumbled to dust in her hands. Alaric, calm down, I urged, but my voice trembled. We need to be ready. Whatever happens tonight, it will change everything. Change everything, he spat. The storm roared, drowning out the bitterness in his tone. We've already changed. Look at us. Look at this city. It's dying, and we stand here waiting for a miracle that may never come. He was right. Of course, I felt it too. The decay, the rot that seeped into the very stones beneath our feet. The laughter of children had become whispers of fear, and the once vibrant market lay silent, like spectres. I closed my eyes, letting the rain wash over me, hoping it would cleanse the despair that clung to my skin like a second layer. And then, from the storm, a figure emerged, a dark silhouette against the swirling mist. My heart leaped, a flicker of hope igniting within me. But hope seemed fragile, like a candle in the wind. Galen, Alaric cried out, relief palpable in his voice as he stepped forward. The air crackled, charged with a sudden energy. Galen, our reluctant hero, stood before us, drenched, his face a mask of determination and dread. I'm here, he said, gasping, his eyes scanning the shadows as if they were alive, as if they held secrets that could unravel the world. I brought something we need. What? I asked, the word barely escaping my lips, trembling with anticipation. The prophecy, he began, but before he could finish, the ground beneath us trembled, a violent tremor that sent us sprawling. The city screamed, a cacophony of terror echoing through the night. I remember when the streets were filled with laughter, I whispered, clinging to the wet cobblestones, my heart pounding in time with the chaos. I remember. But it was too late for memories. The shadows surged forward, twisting into monstrous forms. They were the spectres of our past, the grief and regret that followed us like a shroud, and they were hungry. Stay close, Alaric roared, his voice fierce. But even he felt the tremor of fear beneath his bravado. Galen stood firm, his eyes burning with a resolve that ignited something within me, a flicker of defiance against the dark tide threatening to engulf us. Together, he cried, and the word echoed like a battle cry, rallying the fragments of our broken spirits. But as we braced ourselves for the oncoming tempest, I felt the weight of uncertainty settle upon me like a heavy cloak. Would we be enough? Would our flaws, our fears, and our insecurities rise to meet the shadows? We stood together, three imperfect souls clinging to hope. Our hearts beat as one, and as the darkness surged towards us, the prophecy loomed, an unwritten destiny that waited, breathless. The city needed a patron, but would we answer the call? With every beat of my heart, I felt the noose of destiny tightening around us, a tapestry woven from dreams, memories, and shadows. And in that moment, as the storm raged and the city cried out for salvation, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was only the beginning. The air was thick with despair, a tangible thing that coiled around my throat like a noose. The moon, an indifferent, vacant eye, cast shadows that danced with the whispers of the damned. I stood within the hallowed halls of the temple, the crumbling stone beneath my feet, still warm from the last sacrifice, echoing the heartbeats of those who came before me. The scent of burnt offerings lingered, like old memories, tears of incense rolling down the walls, and I could hear them, the cries of the forsaken, echoing through time. "Who will it be?" I mumbled, the words barely escaping my lips. The question spun in the darkness, a shiver of dread coiling tight around my spine. I felt the weight of anticipation pressing down on me, a cruel reminder of my failures and fears. In that moment, the gods were silent, watching with eyes that glinted like polished stones, craving a destiny yet unwritten. Mira stood beside me, her hands trembling, her fingers clutching the fabric of her cloak. I saw a flicker of hope in her dark eyes, a fragile flame against the gathering storm. She had always been the light, the one who could transform ordinary moments into something transcendent. But now, that light was dimming, flickering in the encroaching shadows. "We cannot let them choose." "Not like this," she whispered, despair lacing her voice. "If we do not act, someone we love will pay the price." But I was stuck, paralyzed by the knowledge that no matter how hard we tried, we could not escape the judgment that hung over us. I had seen it in my dreams, the faces of the chosen, contorted in agony. The patron, they said, would save one, but condemn another to suffer in their stead. I remembered the night they took her. The scream of desperation still echoed in my bones. The way the world fell silent as she was dragged into the darkness, her pleas swallowed by a hungry void. "It's not fair," I groaned, my fist clenching, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm. "Why must we sacrifice what we hold most dear?" A gust of wind howled through the temple, rattling the fragile bones of its structure. Shadows writhed and twisted, taking the form of phantom silhouettes, reminding me of the time I lost them all. Friends, family, hope. "You think the gods care for justice?" Mira's voice sliced through my thoughts, sharp as a blade, her expression etched with both torment and strength. "Their judgment is ruthless. They feast on chaos." I felt the weight of her words descend upon me, a shroud of inevitability. The stones of the temple whispered secrets, tales of those who came before, whose screams once filled these very walls. Each name was a ghost, a spirit awaiting judgment. Their stories were woven into the very fabric of this forsaken place. A chill embraced me, and I shuddered, remembering the laughter that once echoed here, now replaced by the oppressive silence of fate's cruel design. "Do you think it will be me?" I asked, my voice thick with unshed tears. Mira turned to me, her expression softening, her fierce resolve flickering like a candle in a storm. "It doesn't matter, does it? We all deserve salvation, but the gods will choose. They always choose." Her words hung in the air like a funeral dirge, a weight that threatened to crush us both. But in that weight, I found an ember of defiance. I remembered the nights we spent beneath the stars, dreaming of a world unshackled by fate, where love was stronger than sacrifice. I felt that dream burn brighter, urging me to fight against the darkness that threatened to consume us. "We cannot let them have the final say," I said, my voice trembling, yet resolute. We must take control, even if it means tearing our way through the chaos. And there, in the heart of the temple, surrounded by the echoes of despair, I made a promise, a vow to defy the gods, to challenge their judgment and reclaim our lives. My heart hammered, each beat resonating with the fervor of 1,000 souls yearning for freedom. The shadows trembled, as if sensing the shift in the air, and for a fleeting moment, I felt a surge of power coursing through me, igniting a long-extinguished fire. It was then that the earth trembled, and the air crackled with energy. The room filled with an ethereal light, illuminating the faces of ancient deities, their expressions unreadable. Choose. Their voices boomed, a mighty chorus that sent a shiver down my spine. Who will be the patron? I glanced at Mira, her brow furrowed, fear warring with determination. Together, she breathed, and in that instant, I knew we would face whatever came next, side by side. I remembered the warmth of her hand in mine, the way she always believed in the impossible, and I felt my resolve harden like iron. We were not mere pawns in their game of destiny. We were players, and we would rewrite the rules if we had to. The gods watched, their eyes glinting with a mixture of surprise and curiosity, and I felt their anticipation, a gaping void hungry to devour our choices whole. With every beat of my heart, the tension thickened, suffocating yet electrifying, a tempest brewing in the distance. Together, I whispered again, as the shadows deepened, enveloping us like a cloak, and the temple walls began to tremble with the weight of our defiance. The choice lay before us, an abyss of destiny and despair. But I felt the thrill of possibility surge through me. I remembered the stories of those who dared to defy the gods, who forged their own destinies from the ashes of sacrifice. We will not bow, I cried into the void, my voice echoing like thunder. We will rise, and we will choose. And in that moment, I understood the true meaning of power, not in submission, but in the courage to defy the very forces that sought to control us. The winds howled as the gods leaned closer, their judgment balanced on the edge of an abyss, and I felt my heart pound, the rhythm of rebellion igniting in every fiber of my being. The air crackled with anticipation, and I knew deep within that the moment of reckoning was only just beginning. The air crackled with tension, thick as the smoke curling from the torches lining the stone path. The sky bled into twilight, a bruised canvas, scarred by the remnants of an angry sun. I stood there, my heart hammering, caught in the shifting shadows, trapped between gods and mortals, between victory and ruin. The imposing Acropolis loomed like a spectre, its ancient stones whispering ageless prophecies as the winds carried the scent of impending doom. At stake was Athena's gift, a prize encased within her olive tree. Yet it felt like something more, a lifeline woven into the tapestry of our lives. Fragile, yet fierce. I remembered the first time I touched the olive branch. It felt alive beneath my fingers, its leaves shimmering as if guarding secrets. I was a child then, full of wonder, so innocent. But here and now, innocence felt like a distant memory, drowned beneath the weight of destiny. I could see her, the fierce Athena, radiating wisdom and strength, standing tall in her armor, her eyes burning with an intensity that could set the world ablaze. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears, a countdown, a reckoning, as the tension flared like a wildfire. And then there was Eris, the goddess of strife, her laughter slicing through the crowd's whispers like a knife. Her presence stirred something dark within me, a flicker of envy and fear. She wore chaos like a crown, her twisted smile a promise of conflict. I watched her dance through the throng of deities, each step a challenge, each glance a taunt, as she threw her weight into the balance of choosing between Poseidon and Athena. Her words, sweet and venomous, slithered into my mind, sowing seeds of doubt. Was the olive tree truly a gift of peace, or a bitter branch steeped in the discord of fate? Athena stood unyielding, rooted in her resolve, but I caught a flicker of uncertainty in her gaze. I understood this place, the chasm of doubt, for it mirrored my own. A ripple existed between us, a silent plea. Could she trust me to make a wise choice, or would I betray her, like those who came before me? The weight of the choice bore down on me, squeezing the breath from my lungs. I wanted to scream, to run, to hide from the very essence of what it meant to choose. The olive tree had become a symbol, larger than mere wood and leaves. It represented the heart of the city, the pulse of its people, the hope for a future. I saw the villagers, their faces etched with worry, their eyes clouded with fear as they peered into the distance, awaiting news. They were oblivious that their fate hung by a thread, that the whispers of the gods could tear their world asunder. I felt the urgency burrow into my gut, a wave of responsibility threatening to drown me. I remembered the stories. I thought these fables of love and war, of gods and mortals. They always seemed like mere tales, shimmering at the edge of reality. But now, they enveloped me, suffocating, yet intoxicating. In the distance, the sea roared, Poseidon's anger whipping the waves into a frenzy. He was beautiful and terrible, the god of the deep, mirroring the dark corners of my heart. I trembled at the thought of his wrath, of his rejection. Would he descend upon the city, drowning it in his dominion, leaving nothing but ruins? I saw my mother's face, her hands roughened by labor, the warmth of her laughter fading into the night, a memory that twisted like a knife in my gut. The olive was not just a symbol of a gift, it was a lifeline for her, for all of us. Eris danced, her laughter haunting, yet alluring, each note a reminder of the chaos lurking beneath the surface. What if it hung in the air like a spectre? What if Athena's gift was a curse? What if the peace it promised was a thin veil over destruction? My heart pounded, a frantic thrum against my chest, a war drum calling me to action. I had to choose, and the weight of that choice bore down on me like the weight of the cosmos. My hands trembled, and I felt the pulse of the olive tree through the earth, a heartbeat synchronized with my own, binding me to my purpose. As the moment drew near, I caught Athena's eye, fierce yet tender, a storm contained within her gaze. "You must decide," she seemed to whisper, though her lips did not move. I stepped forward, feeling the earth shift beneath my feet, the ground trembling with anticipation. I thought of the olive tree, its roots deep and intertwined with ours, a connection that transcended the whims of gods and men. It was a promise, a chance for peace, for unity. Then Eris struck, a flash of chaos, unleashed as she hurled her golden apple into the fray. And in that instant, the world tilted on its axis. The choice, the gift, the tension of existence enveloped us like a noose, tightening with every breath, every heartbeat. Shadows danced wildly, and the air crackled with electricity, a harbinger of what was to come. I stood there, my heart pounding, caught in the crossfire of fate and desire, in a moment that stretched like a taut string, ready to snap. The olive tree towered, larger than life. Its ancient branches whispered secrets, reminding me of the stakes at play. the gift or the curse, the line blurred, and I heard the echo of history, every decision, every consequence reverberating through time, through us. The choice had to be made. The olive's legacy hung in the balance, and as the cacophony of gods erupted around me, my heart thundered with the weight of it all. Would I choose peace, or would I plunge us into strife? The answer danced on my lips, electrifying and terrifying, as the world held its breath, awaiting the moment when everything could change. The storm howled, the voice of 1,000 weeping souls, a tempest unleashed, lashing against the rocky cliffs. The night was wild and unforgiving, each wave crashing like a heartbeat, each gust of wind a wailing lament. I stood on the edge of an abyss, a mere mortal caught in Poseidon's fury, feeling the weight of his sorrow press down on my chest, thick and suffocating. The sea, once a cradle of shimmering blue, had transformed into a monstrous beast, roaring with rage, a reflection of his torment. I remembered that moment, the air electric, thick with salt and grief, as if the universe itself held its breath. Poseidon, the god of the sea, was no mere figure shrouded in myth. He was a man with a heart that beat, a heart now thrumming with despair. I saw him there, amidst the chaos, his eyes like churning depths, swirling with untamed grief. Lost. That was the word that echoed like a mantra in his mind. Lost. What is a god without his domain? What is a king without his crown? I watched as he summoned the storm, each wave a cry of his broken spirit, each crash against the shore, a shattering shard of himself. And there was Thea, his daughter, standing beside me, her face pale against the fury of the storm. I knew her pain. It was a mirror of his own. She too suffered loss, sharp and unforgiving. Losses that clung to her like shadows. "Father," she cried, her voice swallowed by the wind, "you must not let grief consume you." But the words hung in the air, useless as driftwood in a raging tide. Her heart hammered with a mixture of fear and rage, a tempest in itself. She was both the daughter of a god and a woman crushed beneath the weight of expectation. And here, watching her father disintegrate, I saw the cracks in her soul deepen. The sea roared louder, lashing against the rocks, as if trying to break free, to escape its master's grip. I felt the vibrations pulse through my bones, a symphony of chaos that pulled at my very essence. Poseidon's grief was palpable, enveloping me like a thick fog, suffocating, disorienting. This was not merely a storm. It was a manifestation of his loss, a landscape painted with fury and heartbreak, the losses of the past, memories etched into the depths of his being, surged to the surface, shattering like waves against the shore. "Where are you, my beloved?" he whispered, but the wind carried his words away, leaving them to drown in the abyss. Darkness consumed him, and in that moment, I saw the vulnerability beneath the fury. He was a god, and yet here he stood, a titan brought to his knees by grief, and it terrified me. How could a god feel so utterly human? The shadows of past mistakes flickered in his eyes, choices forged in the fires of ambition, decisions that led to this very moment. I remembered the stories, the whispers of his wrath, and now it surged like the fury of the ocean, a cyclone of despair. Thea drew closer, her courage a faint glimmer, like a small flame against the raging storm. "Father, please, you are destroying the world." Her voice cracked, a ragged edge slicing through the chaos. "If you unleash this fury, there will be nothing left for us." I watched the conflict within her, love warring with despair, hope battling with desperation. She reached out a hand, her fingers trembling, hoping to bridge the chasm of sorrow that had formed between them. But would he see her? Would he feel her? At the heart of the storm, Poseidon turned, his gaze heavy with unspoken pain. "What is left for me, Thea?" he roared, his voice a mixture of thunder and sorrow, echoing off the cliffs like a wail. "What is left when the tides have taken all?" I felt the weight of his agony seep into my very bones, a pain that resonated with the fears I held within my own heart. What remains when you lose all that you hold dear? What remains when the ocean that once cradled you becomes a tomb? And then, as if the very sky wept, the rain began, heavy, relentless, a torrent that soaked us to the bone. Each drop felt like a tear, an offering to the realm of torment he had created. I watched as Poseidon, consumed by fury and grief, raised his trident, the symbol of his dominion, as if to strike at the very heart of the storm he had summoned. "I will not be broken," he roared, and the world trembled at his wrath. But Thea, in all her fragile bravery, stepped forward, her voice trembling yet fierce. "Father, it is not about being broken, but about healing." The words hung heavy in the air, a fragile thread woven into the tapestry of despair. "Your fury does not honor those you have lost. It only perpetuates the cycle of pain." In that moment, I felt the tension crackle, an electrical charge holding the storm at bay. She reached out, her fingers brushing his hand, grounding him, pulling him back from the brink of destruction. I held my breath, praying, begging, willing him to hear her, to find a way through the storm within. But Poseidon, once a mighty god, stood torn between the echoes of his grief and the flicker of hope ignited by his daughter. His eyes, once fierce as crashing waves, softened for a moment as he looked at her, vulnerable yet fierce. It was a moment suspended in time, a fragile breath caught between past and future. Thea, the name hung between them, laden with unspoken affection and untamed sorrow. The storm raged on, but in that single instant I felt the world pause, caught in a balance of fury and love, a moment that could redefine destinies, but also plunge them into darkness. The sea continued to roar, but a whisper of reconciliation began to weave through the tempest, a thread of fragile hope amidst the chaos. And so the storm raged, a tempestuous expression of Poseidon's turmoil, caught between the depths of his despair and the flicker of redemption. In that wild, chaotic embrace of nature, I knew the story was far from over. It was only just beginning, tangled in emotion, raw and real. The air was thick with the scent of burnt offerings, a charred reminder of ambition. Smoke curled like spectres between the columns, and in the eerie silence that descended upon the assembled crowd, I heard my own heartbeat, a frantic staccato rhythm that mirrored the chaos within. I remember that moment so vividly. Athena stood tall, her eyes burning with the ferocity of righteous judgment, as if the weight of the world pressed upon her shoulders. Yet she wore it like a crown. A burst of laughter from behind, a cruel sound that sliced through the tension like a knife. I turned and saw Lysander's face, twisted into a sneer, a mask of arrogance painted over his despair. He had fought fiercely in the contest, each word a dagger, each boast a challenge to the gods themselves. But in that moment, his bravado flickered like a candle in a storm, and I felt the bitter sting of his fear. I watched him clench and unclench his fists, a contorted dance of anxiety and bravado. Then there was Callista. She stood beside me, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, a warrior at heart, yet vulnerable as a leaf caught in a tempest. The contest was her moment of glory, a chance to break free from the shadow of her family's legacy. But now she felt the weight of her loss, a crushing realization that her dreams were ashes scattered to the wind. "I remember," she whispered, almost to herself, "how I envisioned victory." A defeated smile graced her lips, but it did not reach her eyes. Those eyes were pools of despair, reflecting the shattered fragments of her ambition. The crowd held its breath, the palpable tension thickening the air. Athena raised her hand, an unyielding gesture, and silence descended, deeper than the night sky. It was a silence laced with anticipation, one that coiled around you and squeezed until you could not breathe. I saw it in her gaze, a gathering storm, an electric charge of inevitability crackling around her. "Let it be known," she proclaimed, her voice a clarion call that resonated throughout the amphitheater, "that I shall be the patron of this city." A wave passed through the crowd, a surge of mixed emotions that crashed upon the shores of our hearts. Elation, fear, hope tinged with despair. I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet, as if the very heavens held their breath, as Poseidon, the god of the seas, stood in stunned silence, his face a mask of disbelief. His gift, the spring of salt water, a promise of maritime dominion, had been rejected. I watched his fists clench, a storm gathering in his eyes, heralding a wrath that would soon be unleashed upon the world. Athens. The city now bore her name, a testament to her wisdom, her victory. But as I looked at her triumphant face, I saw more than just elation. I saw the weight of responsibility, the weight of the eternal feud that would now exist between her and her mighty uncle. Victory had come, but it came with a price that would be paid for generations. In that moment, as the decision was rendered, I understood that this was not the end of the story, but its true beginning. The birth of the city was forged in the fires of divine rivalry, its foundations laid upon a bedrock of jealousy, ambition, and one fateful choice. The echoes of that choice would resonate through the ages, shaping the destiny of Athens, a city born from the gods' dispute, a city that would forever bear the imprint of both the olive branch and the salty tide. Poseidon's storm was inevitable, but so too was the resilience of Athens, nurtured under the mantle of wisdom. And so, as the crowd slowly dispersed, carrying with them their hopes and fears, I remained, gazing at the towering Acropolis, knowing that we had just witnessed not merely a contest, but an act of creation, brutal and beautiful, the repercussions of which would define our world for epochs to come.